A few years ago, I was looking for a roommate. The vacancy had risen because my previous one was a Swedish guy who had been having some trouble with homesickness. Eventually it got too much and he moved away, somewhere with a colder climate. So as you do, I put some ads up on various sites, and it didn't take long before a guy called Robert responded. We messaged back and forth and a couple of times and arranged to meet up one day at Starbucks. I was immediately struck by his easy, charming wit. You couldn't hope to meet a person who was easier to talk to. He was an art school student with ambitions of making it big as a painter. How exactly one would go about that, I have no idea. But we became friends straight away. I didn't think twice about letting him move in. Just before we parted ways that day, Rob, as he'd insisted I call him, asked a question I really didn't anticipate. Hey, I know this is a weird question, but, are you by chance scared of clowns? He asked with a weird smile. I suppose so, I replied, wondering why anyone would ask. I probably watched Stephen King's It, a stupidity young age. Are you scared of them? Oh, damn, he said. I'm a clown on the weekends. I do like charity events and fundraisers. Visit sick kids in hospitals sometimes. Is that a problem for you? I mean, I know some people are seriously afraid of clowns. Oh, of course not. That sounds cool. It's just the bad clowns that scare me, you know? I have never personally known one before, but Rob didn't seem scary. And I promise I don't kill kids, he said. With a grin, he threw his head back and drained the last of the coffee from the cup. It's the adults I go for. I burst out laughing at his dark sense of humor. What a cool guy, I thought. I'm actually going to be looking forward to this new roommate situation. Our first few weeks living together went about as smoothly as possible, and things were a good deal more peaceful than they had been with my previous roommate. I definitely didn't miss being woken up at unholy hours by sobbing. Rob would get up, go to class, come home, and paint or have a quick drink with a friend or two. Sometimes on the weekends he'd put on his clown suit and go out to those charity events that he talked about. He didn't seem like a scary clown. He was so cool, in fact, he even began to change my views of clowns. There was a freezer in our kitchen that I told Rob not to bother using. It hadn't been right since before he moved in. I kept meaning to call someone to come out and look at it or replace it, but I guess it must have slipped his mind. One day, about 5 months after Rob moved in, I came home to find the lights on, but total silence in the house. That was strange. Rob was always watching TV or playing his guitar. He hated silence, but I really knew something was up when I noticed something different about that freezer. The freezer door was open. I walked over and looked inside. Oh my God, 8 chunks of human body all cut up neatly and stored tightly on the shelves. I can't really explain how I felt in that moment. I panicked. What can you even do in that situation? My mind was racing, and I thought back to the day I met Rob, and he made that joke about killing adults. Just then a faint shuffling noise came from Rob's room. I didn't know what to do. For some reason, I tiptoed over to his room to see what was happening. I don't know, I suppose adrenaline just takes over at that point. I peered in, and sure enough, there he was, laying in the floor with a mad look in his eyes as he stared at the ceiling. After a long delay in which I'm sure he was aware of my presence, he looked up at me. You're sick. I'm calling the police. Clowns are the worst roommates, don't you think? Always uncovering the dead bodies in places you specifically told them not to look. I'm afraid I have to kill him too. So now my old Swedish friend has a dorm partner to sleep along with him in that big freezer. Oh, by the way, I'm still looking for a new roommate, if anyone's interested. I used to work overnight and got off work around 7 a.m. one Sunday morning, fresh from work and exhausted. I missed the connecting bus home and called an Uber to pick me up from the bus stop. By this point, it was already around 8. It was a warm summer day. The sun was bright in the sky, normal amount of foot traffic in a generally safe neighborhood. App tells me someone will be picking me up. Location shows them at 2 blocks away. 5 minutes go by, no movement on their end. 10 minutes, no movement. I know sometimes drivers do this to collect a cancellation fee, but I was still feeling a little hopeful. 2 more minutes go by, and a car pulls up. I thought maybe the app was just lagging on her location. There's a man driving. He tells me he's my Uber. Asks for the address of where I'm going. I tell him it's in the app. He shows me the screen of his phone. It's on the Rider app with no rides requested. Reaffirms he's the Uber driver and asks me the address, pushing upon the passenger side door for me. I'm so tired my brain is broken. I put one leg in the car, but something feels off. I recheck my phone. I'm supposed to have a female driver. It still shows her as 2 blocks away. I get out. I tell him that he's not my ride. "Oh, you called for Lyft," he says, and drives off quickly. I shudder to think of what would have happened if I had gotten into that ride. Contact Uber customer support. They said they were sorry my ride never came, but didn't care about the rest of the incident, let alone the other question it raised. Like, how did he know I called an Uber when I was standing at a clearly marked bus stop? Scrolling through Facebook on my phone, used Lyft exclusively for months after that, and still check the driver profile where I get within 3 feet of the ride. Hello, my name is Diden, and I'm here to tell you my story. So it happened in Algeria during the 90s, back when we had a civil which opposed the radical Islamists to throw government, and we had a lot of terrorist attacks. When I was in the political science university, we learned about the Russian Revolution, and I would like to remind that I was the member of the Youth Communist group in the university. And when we learned about Russia Revolution, there was a lot of cut in the budget because we needed to build a wall to defend in case of the terrorist attacks. So me and the members of the group decided to do a strike and change the director's policy. But in the same time, the Islamists began to attack Algiers. So when we had our strike, the agent who responsible to make sure that no one who is not a student doesn't enter, I will call him Jamal. The day after, they decided to let the terrorist in the campus because he had enough of our strike. At 9:50, we had a meeting with all the students, professors, and the director himself in the cafeteria. So when it came my turn to speak, the terrorist decided to attack. It was a massacre, and it was like a sea of blood. They killed 786 students and 16 professors. I had the chance to hide after the authorities evacuated us. From this day, I will always regret that we made our strike and tried to make a revolution. This isn't my own experience this time, but I was around for it. I should preface that my partner is a teacher, as it is relevant later on. Sometime last year, as my partner was heading home from work, she's Japanese herself, she noticed a South Asian man seemed to be following her back to the station. This was several trains from home, and a total of around 20 stops away. She got on the train, came all the way home, and he got off at the same stop as she did. He sort of shuffled and panicked when he saw me and kept walking. As tempted as I was to challenge him, it all seemed quite circumstantial, and foreigners already get a bad reputation here, so I decided to let it slide rather than pick a potentially violent fight over possibly nothing. Fast forward maybe 8 months later, and one of her students came back to the classroom, visibly shaken. This school was the same one the creep had previously begun following my partner from, and it seemed the girl had been asked by a South Asian man to share her social networking info with him. This girl was 13. My partner is also very petite for her age and could be mistaken as a high schooler or middle schooler by someone looking out for them. At that point, alarm starts ringing. So of course she informs security, but has heard nothing since. Scary to imagine these people are so blatantly out there in well-lit, populated public places, brazenly taking risk in a place that should otherwise be a safe space.